The standard equation, or the standard form of an equation of a circle, is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where hk is just the center, with h being your x value for the center and k being your y value for the center, and r is just the radius. On the first example, you need to find the equation for a circle A with a center at 3, -2, and a radius of 10. So remember that your hk is your center, and so your first number would be your h, your second number your k. Your radius in this case is going to be 10, so your r would be equal to 10. So all you have to do is plug it in just like it says. So you're going to say x minus 3 squared plus y minus -2 squared equals 10 squared. So you can kind of clean that up a little bit. The first part's going to stay exactly the same, so x minus 3 squared. But y minus -2 is going to become y plus positive 2 squared because of the minus and negative. And 10 squared is just 100. So I've written my equation for a circle with a center at 3, -2, and a radius of 10. Your second example says, what's the equation of a circle with a center point at 3, 4, and a radius of 4 square roots of 2? So your center point, it tells you, is 3, 4. That means your h is 3, and your k is 4. Your radius is 4 square roots of 2. So you're going to start out by using your equation of a circle, which is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the first part, pretty well, the left side of the equal sign anyway, stays pretty well the same. But the right side, my 4 square root of 2 squared, just means I have 4 square root of 2 times 4 square root of 2. Remember that I do my big numbers first, so the numbers outside, so 4 times 4 gives me 16. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 would give me square root of 4. Well, I know that the square root of 4 is really just 2, so I can replace square root of 4 with 2. So I have 16 times 2, which gives me 32. The next example says, find the equation of a circle with a center point at 4, -1, and with a point 2, -6 on the circle. So it gives me my center point, which I know is going to be my hk, but it doesn't tell me the radius, which is something I need in order to write the equation of a circle. So what I'm going to have to do is figure out what the radius is. To figure out the radius, remember the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the outside. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my center point for -1 and use this point that tells me is on the circle, and I'm going to do the distance formula for that. So remember that the distance formula is the square root of x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. So I'm going to say the square root of 4 minus 2 squared plus -1 minus -6 squared. 4 minus 2 would give me 2. -1 minus a -6 would become plus a +6, so -1 plus +6 would give me 5. So I'd have 2 squared, which is 4. I'd have 5 squared, which is 25. So my radius would be the square root of 29. So when I write my equation, now I have my center point at 4, -1, and I have my radius, which is square root of 29. So my equation for this circle is going to be x minus 4 squared plus y minus -1 squared equals my radius, which is 29, squared. I can clean that up. The first part stays the same. The second part, I've got y minus negative 1. That's going to turn into y plus positive 1 squared. Square root of 29, or square root of 29 squared would be square root of 29 times the square root of 29. Remember that anytime, this is essentially like having the square root of 29 squared, right? So my square root and my square root cancel each other out. So really this is just 29. I can do the same thing with this next example. So it says find the equation of a circle with a center at 0, 4 and with negative 2, 6 on the circle. So my center point is my HK, so I have that, but I have to figure out the radius before I can do anything else. So I'm going to use the distance formula and say 0 minus negative 2 squared plus 4 minus 6 squared. 0 minus negative 2 is going to give me 0 plus positive 2 squared, and 4 minus 6 is going to give me negative 2 squared. 0 plus 2 is just 2, so 2 squared. And then negative 4 or negative 2 squared would give me positive 4. 2 squared is 4 plus 4. That gives me square root of 8. Square root of 8 is not a perfect square, but I can break it down. 4 times 2. 4 will break down to 2 times 2, bring down that 2. I can make a group of 2 because my index is imaginary 2. So square root of 8 is really 2 square root of 2. So now I have my radius, it's 2 square root of 2. I've got my center at 0, 4. So my equation is going to look like x minus 0 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 2 square root of 2 squared. X minus 0 squared would just turn into x squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 2 square root of 2 times 2 square root of 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4. Inside my square root I'd have 2 times 2, which also gives me 4. But I know that the square root of 4 is just 2, so I can replace that. 4 times 2 is 8. The next example says, given that the endpoints of the diameter of a circle are 1, 4, and negative 3, 2, find the equation that graphs the circle. Now remember, if we're writing the equation for a circle, we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where hk is your center and r is your radius. Now in this problem, it doesn't tell me anything about a center. It also doesn't tell me anything about a radius, but it does tell me that I have endpoints of the diameter, which are at 1, 4, and negative 3, 2. Now, if I have a diameter of a circle, that means all the way across. I need to have the center point, which would be directly in this middle of that diameter. The middle of any line is called the midpoint. So I need to find basically the midpoint of the diameter of this circle. Remember that your midpoint formula is x plus x over 2, y plus y over 2. You learned this yesterday. So you've got your 2 points. Remember, your first ones are your x's, your second ones are your y's. So when you plug that in, you're going to have 1 plus negative 3 over 2 and 4 plus 2 over 2. 1 plus negative 3 gives you negative 2 over 2, and 4 plus 2 gives you 6 over 2. Negative 2 divided by positive 2 would give you negative 1, and 6 divided by 2 would give you positive 3. So your midpoint of your diameter would be at negative 1, 3, which means that this is your center. So your h would be negative 1, your k would be 3. Now once you have the center of that circle, you know that these points are on the endpoints of the diameter. So they're on the outside of that circle. So you're remembering you're still having to find your radius. In order to do that, you can take your center point and one of these points and find the distance between them. So to find your radius, you're going to do the distance formula. So you're going to start with, you can pick either one of these points, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go with the first point. So I'm going to say 1 minus -1. I'm using 1, 4, and -1, 3 in my distance formula. Plus 4 minus 3 squared. 1 minus -1 would turn into 1 plus +1, which would just be 2 squared. And 4 minus 3 would be 1, so 1 squared. 2 squared is 4, 1 squared is 1, so your radius for this one would be square root of 5. 4 plus 1 is 5. Now I have my center and my radius. So my equation for this circle would be x minus -1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals square root of 5 squared. X minus -1 would turn into x plus +1 squared. Y minus 3 would just stay y minus 3 squared. And square root of 5 squared would really be square root of 5 times square root of 5. Remember, if I have the same number underneath my square root, it's like getting rid of the square roots altogether. So just having 5. And your last example is doing the same thing. So we're finding the equation of a circle whose diameter endpoints are at -4, -2, and 4, 4. Now remember, this tells you about the diameter. It does not tell you about the radius. It also doesn't tell you about the center. Let's start by finding the center point. To find the center point, we're going to use the midpoint formula. So we're going to take our endpoints that each have an x and a y, and we're going to use our midpoint formula, which is x plus x over 2, y plus y over 2. So -4 plus 4 divided by 2, and -2 plus 4 divided by 2. -4 plus 4 gives you 0 divided by 2. -2 plus 4 gives you +2 divided by 2. Anytime that I have 0 on top of a fraction, it's always going to be 0. So 0 divided by 2 is 0. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. This gives me the center of my circle. So h would be 0, k would be 1. That still doesn't tell me anything about the radius. To find the radius, I'm going to do the distance from the center point to one of these endpoints. Doesn't matter which endpoint you choose, I'm going to go with the first one. So I'm going to do -4 minus 0 squared plus -2 minus 1 squared. -4 minus 0 would just be -4 squared. -2 minus 1 would be -3 squared. -4 squared is just -4 times -4, which give you +16. -3 squared would be -3 times -3, which would give you +9. The square root of 16 plus 9 would be the square root of 25, which is really just 5. Now I have my center point, my radius. So when I write my equation, I'm going to do x minus 0 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 5 squared. X minus 0 is just x, so x squared, plus y minus 1 squared equals 5 squared, which is 25.